Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, February 27th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over what a perfect offseason might look like for the Arizona Cardinals. In this segment, we switch gears over to baseball, talk a little bit about the other Cardinal, the St. Louis Cardinal. What is their season going to hold? This is one of the teams that had the quietest offseason in all of the MLB. We'll talk about what that means for them and if that means they can make it back to the promised land, to the playoffs with the core that they currently have. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, February 27th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of a season preview for the St. Louis Cardinals. This is a Cardinals team that had a really bad season 2 years ago, fell off a cliff. They go 83-79 last year, good enough for second in the NL Central, tied for second place there, right behind the Brewers. This is a team that is really disappointing this offseason. As I alluded to in the intro of this segment, they didn't sign anybody. They didn't do anything. They did not sign a single person to a minor league deal. To a major league deal. They only signed 4 players to minor league deal, and they made one trade for cash considerations with the Rockies. That's the only thing they made to mess with their 40-man roster. And this isn't the guy they traded for isn't even going to be a major player, right? They go out and they get Nick Anderson, relief pitcher, outfielder Ryan Vilade, utility man Jose Barrero, and relief pitcher Michael Gomez. Those guys, they all signed to minor league deals, none of which are projected by Fangraphs to make the opening day roster, or even be on the 40-man. But it's not just that. They also lost some key pieces. They lost an MVP from a couple years ago in Paul Goldschmidt, who was falling off a cliff a little bit, but still a very important piece of the puzzle for what made them successful when they were winning baseball games. Backup first baseman Matt Carpenter, a good bench bat to have. Relief pitcher Andrew Kittredge, a pretty solid piece in their bullpen. 2 starters in Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, and another relief pitcher in Kenyon Middleton. That is a lot to lose for a team that didn't do anything. And on the surface, those guys, it's not necessarily a big loss, right? On the surface, losing Goldschmidt and Kittredge and Lynn and Gibson and Carpenter, it's a bunch of old guys that are past their prime. But when you take a step back and you look at everything else that's surrounding them this season, when you take a look at everything else that the Cardinals did, everything that the Cardinals were this season, it's really disappointing. This is a Cardinals team that was desperately trying to get back to their glory days, right? This is a Cardinals team that was desperately trying to be that successful Cardinals team that it was when you had those guys like Yadier Molina, you had those guys like Albert Pujols, like everybody else that was a part of that Cardinals pseudo dynasty in the early 2010s, right? This was a really good Cardinals team, and they've been good for a while. They always seem to have that Cardinals devil magic that takes them to the playoffs at the last second, but all of it has seemingly gone away. And this is an organization that is so content to just kind of sit on their hands and do nothing. It's just a team that's rotting away from the inside. It's like a fruit that you leave too long out on the countertop. It's starting to rot away into just nothing. This is a team that when you look at their roster, they don't really have an answer for who's going to be that big guy that steps up. Some trade rumors around third baseman Nolan Arenado might show that they're trying to blow it up, but they haven't really bitten on anything. Nolan Arenado is the last big piece. He's someone that if they really wanted to start over, you get rid of him. You have Mason Wynn at shortstop. You have a DH in Alec Burleson, first baseman now converted from catcher. Wilson Contreras Left field, Brandon Donovan. Third baseman, Nolan Arenado. Lars Nootbaar in center. Jordan Walker is someone that I really like in right, but the Cardinals keep sending him up and down and up and down, and they don't let him get comfortable at the MLB level. They're taking away his confidence. It's killing him. This is a Cardinals team that is completely mismanaging their talent, like a Jordan Walker, that was a top prospect in baseball when he was a prospect until he graduated earlier last season. You have Nolan Gorman and Thomas Sagase at second base, and Ivan Herrera to put at catcher. You also have you've got Pages as well as a backup center, but there's nothing that really screams I love the way this lineup is going when you're looking at the way this lineup is built. There's no great guy in this lineup that you can count on for a huge positive WAR season, right? The big bat, you have Nolan Arenado falling down to 5. Wilson Contreras, his injuries, he's not a guy that I feel like I can count him. And having at first base, this is a team that was built around defense in their glory days. This is a team that was built around having a great infield, especially. And now that's disintegrated into nothing. This is a Cardinals team that I think is extremely disappointing and really needs to hit that reset button, which sucks because a guy like Jordan Walker that's really young, and this is a team that has some young talent, Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker. Again, these guys have talent, but on a team like the Cardinals, they're not going to be able to do anything, especially with an ownership group that does nothing in the offseason. Quite literally nothing in the offseason they did. So now we look at the rotation. They lost a couple starters. Lance Lynn, a little bit older. Kyle Gibson, they lose as a starter as well. And now you're left with Sonny Gray. They traded for Eric Fetty, a guy that was a lot better after a year in the Korean League, but still not a guy that you want to be at the top of your rotation. Miles Mikolas, a little bit older, has a little bit left. Andre Palante and Steven Matz. This is not a pitching rotation that I look at and I'm like, wow, this is particularly scary. And when you have the rest of your division, I know we talked about the Brewers also not really getting better this offseason, but the other teams in your division are trying to get better. The Pirates have a flamethrower, a superstar at pitcher, and they're hopefully trying to get better around him, right? This is a team that didn't really do too much, and we'll get to that when we get to the Pirates later on, but they didn't do too much. You have the Reds, who have a lot of super young talent. If they can stay healthy, they should run away with this division. And you have the Cubs, who definitely tried to get better. They made some big trades this offseason. And then you have the Cardinals, who just kind of sat there and did nothing. When you look at the bullpen, after losing a guy like Kittredge, you've got Ryan Helsley right there, Matthew Liberatore, Ryan Fernandez, Jojo Romero. This is not a bullpen that, again, screams incredible baseball to me. This is a team that I think is just going to continue to slowly rot away until they're a basement feeder, until they blow it up. And it's a shame because there's a lot of players that I'd like to see at the end of their career find some success. There's a lot of players, and this is a very proud organization. I'd like to see these guys play out on a good team, or at least start their career on a good team, some of these guys. But at the end of the day, this is a team that I think is really going to fall off this season. Their over-under from Vegas is set at 75.5. That is a massive loss from last season. They won 83 games last year. Vegas says they're going to lose 7 or 8 more games than they did last year. I think they're going to lose even more. I think they finish at around 70 and 92. I just don't like where this team is heading. I don't like that they sat on their hands and did nothing, and this is a team that has no direction. They're just clinging on to the old days as long as they possibly can without trying to get better. Like we said about the NFL early on in the show, embrace the new. Embrace the new. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind, and that's what's happening with the Cardinals right now. But let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think the Cardinals are going to be this season? You think they can shock me, shock the world? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow going over everything from the first day of the NFL Combine. We saw Shamar Stewart absolutely kill it. We'll talk about him, everyone that didn't participate, everyone that did, and what the big standouts were, as well as continuing our MLB and NFL preview series. Thank you. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to